Good day, everybody. What time is it? Well, it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the 19th of November, 2024. And just right now, before I start talking about news, I wanted to show you this tree. This is, I suppose, a willow tree. And strange thing is, it still has a lot of its leaves. And if I can remember properly, I think it gets its leaves later as well. But you look at all these other trees, and all the leaves are already gone. It's just something I noticed. It's not anything to do with the news, but I'm interested in plant life and things like that. And the last video I even mentioned something about you know, how these people are talking about climate change. You know, climate change is a real thing. It's been happening since day one of planet Earth, before humans were even here. So it's not like, oh, it's a new thing. But I think what they're actually referring to is man-made climate change, and that one of the big things is what they are trying to make you think is all you have to do is pay big heavy taxes or just start a new tax and the bad climate will go away. And the real truth is, as most of you already know, is there's always been patterns in climate change for probably millions of years, however old the earth is. So it's not like these taxes are going to change anything. You already know that, but they're going to make you think it's helping. And then they can turn it on and turn it up and turn it down anytime they wish when they start to say, oh, well, things are getting worse again, so we got to raise the taxes. You know, they'll pull off anything to fool everybody. You know, and there's just, unfortunately, too many, I don't know, naive people that'll go along with that. You know, and that's just a side note. That's nothing about the news. And by the way, if I show you over here, very busy street, that is Prospekt Partizanski. It's a big street also in Minsk, not the biggest. Nezavisy mostly is one of the bigger ones. And I've just chosen to walk here behind, you know, here's some side road. This is a Ulica, and of course that would be a prospect. You know, Ulica is a street, but that is maybe a boulevard in English. I don't know, much bigger. So just guessing, I'm not too sure. But a lot of these buildings, just for your own interest, is maybe it's typical. But things look pretty bad right now because, as you see, a lot of the plants are gone, dead, so to speak, and trees look all dreary, and the weather is not so nice. And a lot of people say that maybe one of the worst months in Belarus is November. I think they have this word called sire, meaning like wet, damp. We did have some rain today. We've had some snow lately. When I looked out the window this morning, it was snow mixed with rain. We had one day a few days ago where it was snowy. But anyway, you guys want to hear about the news. Okay, the world is abuzz right now, as you all know, about Joe Biden giving permission to Ukraine to use these long-range ATACMS on Russia proper. And as we know how things have been working out, they've been using these ATACMS. Let's be clear on that. They've already been using ATACMS, but supposedly short range. And I think the only way that they can make Ukraine comply with this is maybe there's a programming thing where they can only go a certain distance, and then maybe you have to use a software or to program it to where it can be shot in longer distances. That's just my guess. So since they're already there, and if that is actually true, that tells you right there that there's going to have to be Americans over there programming these things to be able to be shooting these things in long ranges. And the whole deal about Putin's not being very happy about this is because the United States is already involved, you know, with global positioning and all that in firing off these ATACMS into even the short range in Russia. And I believe that they've already shot these things in the areas maybe of Belgorod, and there are other missiles like the Storm Shadows, and the Britain has used Storm Shadows against the Kursk bridge, you know, the Crimean bridge, and you know, now they're using drones, water drones, all sorts of things, underwater drones, you know, and Ukraine has vowed that they're going to destroy that bridge. You know, that's just, I don't know. Luckily, things have not happened yet so far, but as a result of what Biden said, I think that they were already in the works of making a law of updating Russia's nuclear posture, the possibility of Russia using nuclear weapons against an opposing power. And it looks like they updated it. Maybe they put this in recently, or at least it has now been put out, that any country that has that's involved, any countries, like say more than one country involved, if you have some kind of a little puppet country, you know, even smaller than Ukraine, for example, and they are attacking Russia as a puppet country, that the puppeteer is also liable. So, which in most cases, normally always, with wars anywhere on earth at any time, is always the United States involved in using other countries as puppets to conduct their wars. And I should say something about wars in general. And I don't know if many of you know this, but you know what Ukraine is conducting, or what Russia is conducting in Ukraine, is called a special military operation. And it's not called a war. And if you even look back in recent history, I guess it's since World War II, there are no wars declared anymore. There is no such thing, I don't think. I can't think of any country anywhere, or countries, nothing, that has ever declared a war. And I think it's maybe because the UN Charter has some stipulations that if any country declares a war on some other country, that immediately all countries have to stop trading with that country, blah, blah, blah. So nobody ever declares wars anymore. It's just like the United States, you know, they walked into Vietnam, and of course, as you know, the Gulf of Tonkin, you know, there's supposed to be some attack on a ship, and of course that was a big lie. It was completely made up so that the US could go to war against North Vietnam. So they created a false flag that never even happened in order to go to war against North Vietnam. Very interesting. And but it wasn't a war. They never declared a war. And part of the, you know, something that we are told when you're in the military, as you know, I did 7 years in the military, some pretty interesting assignments, I should say. And at the very beginning, when you go into the military, they tell soldiers, and there's probably some of you who are soldiers out there, and when you give a salute, you're not allowed to show the palm of your hand, you know, like they say, like the British do this, and you know, some people do this. The Ukrainians were doing this. I don't know if they still are. They do some sort of a thing like this. And they say the Germans are doing it. But they say American government or Department of Defense says, we do not show our palm because we've never lost a war, you know. So, and then, as everybody says, they didn't lose the war against North Vietnam, you know. You know, the strange thing is, you know, you go to war, like, for example, Afghanistan, you know, these countries, they go to war to a large extent, and whoever they're going to war against, maybe the people of that country, for example, Afghanistan, and of course, how things work nowadays is you have something, you know, obviously like guerrilla warfare. Maybe if the U.S., you know, whatever they did to Cuba, some real nasty stuff. You hear about the history of what happened when the U.S. occupation of Cuba, it's some really terrible stuff. So it's not like what you think. It's not like the Andrews Sisters rum and Coca-Cola. It's not such a fun thing like that. You're working for the Yankee dollar. But like, say, Afghanistan, or any, or even, you know, like Vietnam. And the truth is that these people, they just never give up, you know. It's not like they're ever going to give up and surrender, because, you know, the United States, they know that they're in the right and the United States is in the wrong, attacking these countries for various reasons. Mostly has to do with money, as you all know. You know, money and power, all those things work together. Money, power, fame, that, blah, blah, blah. So that's what's that's what that's all about. And Ukraine, it's kind of a different sort of a deal. As you all know, the main reasons for this, and there's more. I was starting to talk about that in one video, and I ended on one thing. I, you know, lost my train of thought. And, you know, the main thing is it's Russian sovereignty. The United States, not just the United States, it's all these countries. Maybe not all. I have to keep qualifying myself. Germany is one. Great Britain is one. maybe that's the only ones. I know historically those are two of them, and the United States. Those are countries they always want to defeat Russia. They have a dream for a long, long time. They want to bring Russia to its knees, bring it to a strategic defeat. And a lot of it has to do with resources, gaining resources, gaining strategic territory. The Crimea, for example, Britain was going to war against Russia in the 1860s, to get the Crimea, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that the Ottoman Empire had Crimea at that time. So you would think, why Erdogan, he doesn't know whose side he should really be on, Ukraine's or Russia, or stay out of it completely. He's been kind of playing things okay in a lot of ways, and you all would know of Erdogan. He's kind of like, they say, a loose cannon. You never know which direction he's going to be pointing, so you better just duck and cover. I should talk about duck and cover. They're already starting that in places like Sweden. They're telling everybody get ready for war. That was something just announced. Today? Yeah. And but it was like, remember, duck and cover, and they had these things in the United States in the 1950s, because of a nuclear war. Like telling children they're going to survive from a nuclear holocaust. Good luck on that one. So let me look at my notes here so I can continue. But anyway, Russia's sovereignty, and NATO, as sneaky as they are, and it's like, oh no, these countries wanted to be in NATO. A lot of them are threatened, and that's a big story in and of itself, is how, for example, the CIA gets involved behind the scenes and leaders are threatened. And there's so many ways that they can steer situations and get leaders to make it look like they want to join NATO, that they have a reason to join NATO, even when it's completely against their country's interests. People get compromised. What more do you have to talk about that? It's a big issue anyway, and that's what you're looking at maybe right now with Armenia and Abkhazia. I talked about Abkhazia. That's kind of a strange thing already right there. And the Prime Minister, the President and the Prime Minister have agreed to resign, and lately, because apparently the European Union, as a puppet of the United States, of course, has arranged something through what I've talked about in other videos. They have what do you call those people? Activists and things, and for protests, this and that. So it's, to a small extent, certain extent, they've overthrown the government of Abkhazia. Abkhazia is right next to Georgia, and it's a interesting sort of a thing. And one of the sparks that set that off was something about giving permission for Russians to own apartments in Abkhazia, and NATO, the European Union and their agents there. That was the spark, and they said, okay, now get on the streets, everybody, and start saying all this and all that. And I think they made it look as if the Russians are going to come up and buy all of the apartments or something throughout the whole country. Those people have that country has a little bit of a different economy. I don't know if that would happen, but instead they could have called a referendum, or they could have updated the law. But I don't know why they didn't do it. But anyway, that's just what it's all about as far as Abkhazia. And believe it or not, even Georgia. Now, it was already decided beyond any shadow of a doubt that the Georgia Dream Party won the election. And the European Union and the United States see it so extremely important to take Georgia, to use that as a second front against Russia. Ukraine on one side and Georgia on the other. And they've been trying to get Georgia, and they even had Georgia for a while under Saakashvili. They had control of Georgia, and it was under, as I said, Saakashvili. And Saakashvili, one of his clique, who is, I call her Sour Bitchy. I don't really know, I can't remember what her real name is, was the one who's president, which is actually mostly a figurehead. She doesn't have much to do with the government. It's like the president of Germany. Most people don't even know who that is. They don't have much to do. It's the chancellor that runs Germany, as you know, the one who's in charge, Olaf Scholz. So anyway, the president of Georgia doesn't have so much power, but they have, I think he's a prime minister, I guess, is the title in Georgia. if I'm not even mistaken. So, for the most part, what this video is about, I want to talk about why did Joe Biden approve of these long-range missiles to be fired into Russia. And I tell you what, I just have a suspicion. It's just a small suspicion, and only today did they officially admit that Biden did give permission. So they were mum about it. Everybody said there's mumbling, and nobody even wanted to say anything. For the past day and a half, whenever Biden decided he was going to do that, and maybe he was ducking covering. But now they officially admitted that they gave permission to Ukraine. And I was sort of thinking, they obviously they were going to do that. And the reason why they didn't come out and say anything is because they have to build up a fake story as to why. And what it is, I don't know if they've even come up with that, but it was announced by some official, that has some sort of administrative part from the Department of State. What is it called? East European Affairs? I have no idea. Can't remember. What was his name? Doesn't even matter. But anyway, it's just official. I'll just say that. And I was sort of guessing that maybe he did that partly because of a threat maybe from Ukraine. As we all know, and Podolyak, this joker that's in Ukraine's government, you could say he's maybe the second most powerful person, at least what we see, under Zelensky. And he's a born Nazi, of course, Podolyak. And he was acting as if what I'm just about to say to you is not true. But what Zelensky has admitted himself, that if he does not get permission, for example, to use these long-range missiles, does not keep getting a lot of money and a lot of weapons, kept getting fed to him over and over, that he said that they are going to make a nuclear weapon. And what, of course, he means by that is a dirty bomb. And Ukraine has a lot of this, and they've been gathering over the past quite a while, and they had it even in the past. Russia was suspecting they were going to make a dirty bomb many months ago. And Zelensky just came out recently and he said they're going to make a nuclear bomb and they're going to use it against Russia. And I was thinking maybe Joe Biden was thinking, if I give permission for him to use these ATACMS and then send a huge amount of money, I'm not saying Joe Biden's a nice guy and he's doing this sort of thing, because there's other perspectives as well. But he's made, one side, I can do this, I'll send tell him he can use these long-range weapons, ATACMS against Russia, and then he won't make a dirty bomb, and maybe Joe Biden's acting like everybody would point the finger at him for doing it. But of course, he's opened up another Pandora's box, that Russia has a nuclear posture that says if somebody, like for example, the United States, and Ukraine, obviously, and it's in the doctrine of Russia, if they get together, which they would have to be, and use long-range weapons on even military targets, even military, not just civilian, military targets within Russia proper, that would authorize Russia to use nuclear weapons on, believe it or not just Ukraine, but on the United States or any other countries that are using these weapons against Russia. And that was written and it was approved of today. It was approved of today, not long ago, maybe a couple hours ago, maybe 1 hour ago. So I'm not saying that this is breaking news, because I think it was already written down, a lot of this, but it just was not exposed, and now it's official that it's exposed. I'm kind of boxed in. I don't want to go where it's noisy, a lot of cars. I think I'm to the end of this and there's a street there. I have to go into the metro. But anyway, okay, that's some news about that. It's just one perspective. And of course, a lot of people, like Donald Trump Jr. You haven't really heard from Donald Trump yet, but Donald Trump Jr. And they're saying that Biden's trying to get World War III going before Trump gets into office, because, trying to foil Trump's plan, and, Biden's plan is war, which Biden's plan, for the most part, is to support the Democratic Party's supporters. And a lot of people are thinking that he's doing like a Samson option. He's He's very angry at Obama for making him not run again, and Kamala and whoever. So he's doing a Samson option and trying to destroy the whole world. I don't know. But obviously he's trying to please, this is pretty obvious, the military-industrial complex. And one of the big deals is, as you guys all know, is to keep the money going. And it's never really, strangely enough, it's never really, the goal is not, the objective is not to win a war. And many people have said this in the past, but the objective is to keep the wars going. To keep them going because the money keeps flowing. As the war keeps going, the money keeps flowing. And these people, that's their goal. They're out for the money. And they're out for an income for a long period of time. And that's why the United States has been in wars over and over and over for a long time, to keep that money flowing. You know, Donald Trump Jr. was even saying, the trillions, you know, these people want these trillions of dollars all the time. So, and I have some notes. Let me see what I had in my notes here. Why didn't Biden do it? Part of this thing, and I think it's only an excuse, and only an excuse to approve of ATACMS, is this myth, and it turns out that it's there's no truth in it, that there's North Korean soldiers being used on the side of Russia against the Ukrainians in this military conflict. And Petro Poroshenko, the former president of Ukraine, has said that he has some big reward. I don't know how much money. I don't know. It must be a big sum of money. I think it was 1.2 or 2.4 million hryvnias, you know, whatever the currency is or something like that in Ukraine. Who knows? Probably a good sum of money, but a big reward for anybody, the first person to capture a North Korean soldier. Now, it's possible. The possibility is that there are maybe a few North Korean soldiers serving in the ranks in the Russian military. But you know what's even more, it's not even probable, but it's obvious, and it's well-known fact that you have French, and you have American, and you have British, and you have Polish soldiers. I mean, we're talking about thousands of them serving in the Ukrainian ranks against the Russians. But you see, that's okay. But if Russia has a couple soldiers from some other country, that's not okay, you know? I don't know. Maybe they say, that's not fair. You know? But of course, it's not even fair that these people started this war, the United States. So I don't know. Who's going to talk about what's fair and what isn't fair? So, talking about that, the Korean thing. Bomb shelters. Also, they're starting to sell bomb shelters. I believe Sweden is one of them, and they're the ones that came up now with this new version of what happened. I think it was in the 1950s in the United States, you know, where they had duck and cover. I guess you can still find it on YouTube. Just probably type in duck and cover and you'll find out. And they're kind of doing something like that in Sweden at the time. Look at this. Wow, you guys are probably fascinated. Look at this, showing you the garbage bins here. See, let's go dumpster diving, you know. I'll tell you what, I got a small cat, and he goes dumpster diving in our garbage cans, and he goes in there looking for things like chicken bones or something like that. One poor guy is sick. I got to get home, actually, by the way, because he had some kind of virus or something. Just a young cat, black cat. You guys will see him in future videos when I start showing my kvartira, my stalinka, you know, my apartment. And I think we still have a couple months. We're waiting for a bookshelf to get finished. It's being made. And you guys say, well, what the heck? Shouldn't that only just take a couple of days? Well, no, not this bookshelf. This bookshelf is going to be solid alder wood, and there's going to be some design on it and things like that. And it's mostly for one room. We have one room, and we're trying to make it really nice. And you guys will be impressed. How do I know that? How do I know you'll be impressed? Well, you'll be impressed anyway. It's a nice room. You know, some of you might say, that's kitschy. That's kitschy. I don't know if they use that word in the United States. Germans use it, and the Russians use it. Kitsch. But it's just an old, how do you say, kind of a style, design, making it look sort of a classical, sort of a lot of people call it bohemian. Bohemian is oftentimes referred to as a mixture of a lot of different kinds of classical styles. I don't know, but I know there's some people out there that are into design, so you can tell me if I'm right or wrong about this, about what Bohemian is. So, okay. Oh, one last thing. I somehow I don't want to get into Israel and Gaza and Israel and Lebanon and all of the destruction and things like that's what's going on there, because it's just never ending and it's just massive destruction. So let me talk about instead some other massive destruction. What was feared and people were talking about in Russia is that Ukraine wants to use these long-range missiles on a nuclear power plant, and there's some of the biggest ones in the world are not too far from the Ukrainian border, and of course it would be, you know, when they get this range, they're very easy for them to hit that. So, you know, cross your fingers they're not going to do that. That would even have a lot of destruction on Ukraine when the nuclear fallout comes. So they're probably going to be watching the winds and trying to choose an opportune time. Maybe when the wind is blowing into Russia and leave a lot of nuclear fallout in Russia. Bad idea, bad idea, bad idea. Because you have to wonder how Russia is going to respond to that one. Not very favorably. And Russia already is warning. And Russia, what did Scott Ritter say? The Russians don't bluff. When Russia says something, even Putin, you know, he tries to restrain himself whenever he said something like, you do this and it's possible that such and such could happen. He does restrain himself, but it's not like the United States. The United States, you know, plays poker, you know, and you can bluff in poker. And as they say, Putin plays chess, like Medvedev and things like that. And it's not like it used to be in the old days. I'll tell you what, the United States, they've gone way too far in too many things, and you know. And Russia's, I think, tired of playing games. So that's about that. So what else? Power plant. I don't know. I was going to talk also something about, you know, some of these targets that Ukraine might try to hit, and I don't know. That's actually the main fear, is that they're going to be using this against nuclear power plants. And you know, I don't know. I tell you what, I don't find that they have been as vicious, even though, you know, people look back in the past and look at Nazis and say how bad they were, and undeniably, the Ukrainian Nazis are far worse than what the German Nazis were doing. A lot of the things that the German Nazis are accused of doing in the past, a lot of it is a exaggeration, even though I'm not saying they're nice. They were nice guys and it was a nice ideology, not at all. But in World War II, for example, what happened here in Belarus, you know, and I mean, huge devastation. You see what's going on in Gaza right now, and if you think about what happened here in this country in World War II, it was much worse than what is happening in Gaza today. And whatever Nazis did anywhere in the world, Belarus had about the worst of it. And people are, you know, sometimes crying about what happened in Poland. Well, that was Girl Scouts compared to what the Nazis did here in Belarus. And the ones that were doing the worst bloodthirsty things, you know, I mean, sure, there were Germans directing it, but the ones that were doing the massive killing and burning people alive, burning children alive, it was the Ukrainian Nazis. They did it gladly. And I'm not necessarily blaming any sort of individual people, and I'm not want to say the Ukrainians, but it was the Banderites. I shouldn't have said Ukrainians. It's the Banderites. They're the ones that were doing it. It's those that were infected with this ideology, and of course the same ideology is going around now, and they're trying to foster it big time in the Baltic states, even as far as the United States. And it's like even like it was then, it was about the hatred of the Soviet Union, communists and things like that. And now it's Russians. Russians have taken the place of the communists, and the Russians are not communists. But anyway, Russia has resources, and the leadership in the West and the businesses, they get together of this thing called fascism, and they want the people to be incited to come and yes, include any allies of the Russians, which is the Belarusians, to come over and kill, because they're inherently evil people, very evil. They're just born. It's in their blood and in their genetics to be evil. So we have to go over there and kill them. So that's what they're trying to make a lot of people in the West believe. Some of them even are going for it. Some people are dumb enough to fall for that sort of thing. Terrible things about ideology. Anyway, even religions are ideologies. You know, our religion is the right religion. We're the best religion. The other people are wrong for thinking the way they do and believing what they do. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. So, I guess that's about all I have to say. This is about half an hour video, and I thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for your support. Really, I really mean that. You know, some nice comments that come in. So, anyway, thanks again, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.